dwell in a house among his people. But now he has a home that's better than the first. It doesn't look like a building with a steeple. Now he's living in the people of the church. Brick after brick, God is building his temple. Brick after brick, he's making it strong. With Christ the sure foundation and his people as the stones, he is building a place he can live. Brick after brick.
Well, here we are in 2024. And this year is going to be a year of change, a year of adjustment. And I ask the Lord to give me your words, your wisdom, and what we need to go forward. So I'd like to call your attention to the Gospel of John, chapter 21, reading from the New International Version. And beginning at verse 1, these words are recorded. Afterward, Jesus appeared again to his disciples by the Sea of Galilee. It happened this way. Simon Peter, Thomas, also known as Didymus, Nathanael from Canaan in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples were together. I am going out to fish, Simon Peter told them, and they said, we'll go with you. So they went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not recognize that it was Jesus. He called out to them, friends, haven't you any fish? No, they answered. He said, throw your net on the right side of the boat and you will find some. When they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it is the Lord. As soon as Simon Peter heard him say, it is the Lord, he wrapped his outer garment around him, for he had taken it off, and jumped into the water. The other disciples followed in the boat, towing the net full of fish, for they were not far from the shore, about 100 yards. And I want to use a verse found in Proverbs 29 and 18. Where there is no vision, the people perish. But he that keepeth the law, happy is he. Where there is no vision, the people perish. I want to speak from the subject, the value of vision. The value of vision. When we look in the gospel stories, it's always been clear that the Gospel of John had many unique features from the other Gospels. One of the best ways I find to study and understand concepts is through the lives of real people in the Bible. The Gospel of John is a personal gospel. And what I mean by that is John speaks and names various people, individuals that we don't find in the other Gospels. Along with the list of apostles and disciples, John spends a little extra time speaking about people like Andrew. He tells us a little bit about Nathanael. Of course, we learn quite a bit about the Apostle Thomas. And then there are other characters, disciples, people that Jesus interacted with that we get information about, such as Nicodemus, mentioned 3 times in the gospel. And there is the person of Lazarus, who doesn't appear in any of the gospels other than the Gospel of John, and yet he is a very significant and pivotal character in the gospel story. We learn that it's because of the raising of Lazarus from the dead that it stirred up the crowds that provoked that triumphal entry into Jerusalem the week before his crucifixion. And we learn a lot about the Apostle Peter. In John's Gospel, we read, "And he, Andrew, brought him to Jesus. Jesus looked at him and said, 'You are Simon, son of John. You will be called Cephas,'" some people say Cephas, which when translated is Peter. In this one verse, we find someone who has 3 names. His birth name is Simon, but the name Peter, most common to him, was a name given to him by Jesus. Jesus gave him this name. And Peter is a prominent character in the gospel stories. Peter is mentioned and named more than anyone else in the Gospels. Peter spoke to Jesus more than anyone. Peter was spoken to by Jesus more than anyone. Peter asked Jesus more questions than anyone else. Peter was asked more questions by Jesus than anyone. Peter was the only person to ever rebuke Jesus. And Peter was rebuked by Jesus more than anyone else. So he certainly does take up a lot of data in the gospel stories. And through chapter 21, we see basically the entire chapter going around Peter. He challenges him with the questions of, "Do you love me?" Peter had denied Jesus 3 times. And now Jesus, in his grace, gives him the opportunity to reaffirm his love and commitment to him by asking him 3 times, "Do you love me?" John's gospel gives more information about individuals. At the arrest of Jesus, there's a story of one of the guards who is assaulted and loses an ear. In Matthew's account, it says, "With that, one of Jesus's companions reached for his sword, drew it out, and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear." He doesn't name him, just says one of Jesus's companions. In Mark's account, it says, "Then one standing near drew his sword." In Luke's account, it says one of them struck the servant. But when we get to the Gospel of John, he says, "Then Simon Peter, who had a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant, cutting off his right ear." John names the disciple who did this. And by the way, he wasn't aiming for his ear. He was aiming for his head. He clearly ducked. So John gives us this personal information and names names. And he even tells us the servant's name was Malchus. Some believe that Malchus would later on become a convert of Jesus Christ. Now, in this story, he called out to them, "Friends, haven't you any fish?" "No," they answered. He said, throw your net on the right side of the boat and you will find some. When they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. So here we have, after Jesus has risen from the dead, another miracle. But this particular miracle should be somewhat familiar to us who have read the Gospels, because almost the exact same thing happened at the beginning of Peter's ministry. This same thing occurred when Jesus first called Peter and met Peter. It went down something like this.
Simon, it's him. That's him. Simon, that's him.
No time for this, Andrew.
It's him. Simon.
I need to go. I'm sorry. No time for this today.
I have something for you.
For me? I'm in a hurry.
Yes, I know. I'm Jesus.
Simon.
Put that down for a catch. A little farther out.
I don't have a quarrel with you, teacher. But we've been doing this all night. Nothing. All right. At your word. Take that gun! No! Let's go!
It's a very similar occurrence. And this introduction of Jesus to Peter had a very profound effect on Peter. For he, Peter, and all his companions were astonished at the catch of fish they had taken. And so were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, Simon's partners. Then Jesus said to Simon, "Don't be afraid. From now on, you will fish for people." With that, at that point, Jesus gives Simon his will for his life. He tells him what his purpose in life is going to be. He tells him, "I'm going to change your life and set you on a new direction." That was at the beginning of Peter's ministry, when Jesus first met Peter. Now, at the end of that gospel story, Jesus has been crucified and has rose again. And we find Peter now saying, "I am going out to fish." And they said, "We will go with you." And I would suggest to you in this story that Peter has lost his vision. He has been distracted from the call of Jesus on his life. Not that he was doing anything wrong or evil, but he is not doing what the Lord had in mind for him. We're back with fishing. Where there is no vision, the people perish. Vision is essential. If you don't have vision, it's going to be detrimental. It can cost you everything. Now, the scriptures tell us we walk by faith, not by sight. But there is an important distinction between vision and sight. Sight allows you to see what is. Vision allows you to see what can be. Sight is the natural function of the eyes. Vision is the spiritual function of faith. The lack of vision will promote uncertainty. Uncertainty about what? Uncertainty about God's purpose in your life. A lack of vision will cause you to question, what does God want from me? It will give you uncertainty about direction. What should I be doing? What should my goals be? Where am I headed? And it will give you uncertainty about your future. What comes next? What's going to happen now? And that's important because a man without a future will always return to his past. Let me put it this way. A man without a future will always live in the past. You see this in relationships. People can go from relationship to relationship because they never got over Joey. They never forgot or got over the hurts and pains of prior relationships, and now they are reliving them over and over and can't move forward. We see this when people are arrested and they escape from prison. They know where to find them. Where did he hang out before? Who does he know? And so someone escapes, they find them 6 blocks from the prison at Bubba's house. Because he has no future. So he has no choice but to live in the past. And what do we see Peter doing now? I'm going out to fish. I'm going back to what I know. I'm going back to what I was good at. I'm going back to what gave me comfort. And worse than that, they said, we will go with you. So now Peter, who's called to be a leader, is taking them with him. Well, how did this happen? Because these things don't happen overnight. You don't wake up one day and just have no vision, no direction, no purpose for God in your life. It's a slow, predictable process. And when we read the story, Jesus told him this was going to happen. And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, indeed, Satan has asked for you that he may sift you as wheat. But I have prayed for you that your faith should not fail. And when you have returned to me, strengthen your brethren. Now, I've always found this verse to be very profound. What would you do if Jesus came to you and said, Satan has asked me to kill you, if he could kill you? I don't know, but I would want to say, well, did you tell him no? And his response is, but I prayed for you. Well, pray for, why don't you just stop him? Why don't you get him out of my life? But he doesn't. He prays for him. and tells him that what you're going to need is faith. And if your faith doesn't fail you, you'll win. You'll get the victory. But he prophesies here and predicts that this is going to happen to you. And when you return, you're going to stray. You're going to go off track. But I'm praying for your faith not to fail, and that will bring you back. Well, what happens then? We see a chain of familiar events. Jesus is betrayed by one of his closest friends. He's brought before Pilate. He is then beaten and tortured and then condemned to die. Well, where is Peter when all this is going down? Meanwhile, Peter followed him at a distance and came to the high priest's courtyard. He went in and sat with the guards and waited to see how it would all end. This verse is really all you need to know about what happened with Peter. Peter followed him at a distance. Now that's a whole sermon right there. Because Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. But Peter's following him now at a distance. How close are we following Jesus? Do we follow him at a distance? Do we follow him one way when nobody's watching us? Do we follow him one way on the job? Do we follow him one way on Saturday night and another way on Sunday morning? Oh, I'm preaching hard now. He's following him from a distance and came to the high priest's courtyard. He went in and sat with the guards. The very people that are about to kill and crucify Jesus, Peter is comfortable there. Peter is hanging out with the enemy. Don't tell me it doesn't make a difference who you choose to have in your life. Don't tell me it doesn't make a difference in the sources that you take in, who feeds into your mind, into your spirit, into your soul, that it won't have an effect on you. And then he says he waited to see how it would all end. Peter is now a spectator. He went from being an active participant to someone on the sidelines, just waiting to see how it's going to end. He's on the sidelines evaluating. Let's see how this is going to go down. There are three types of people. Those who make things happen and those who let things happen. And there's a third group, those who wonder what happened. Which type are you? Don't answer that. Well, Peter's on the sideline as a spectator, passive, wondering what's going to happen. And so it's no mystery or wonder why Peter would end up in a position that he found himself in, denying Jesus, being afraid, now in despair. Isaiah tells us, forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. God here asks a question. He says, I'm doing something new, but then interjects a question. Do you see it? Can you perceive it? Which suggests that it's possible for God to do something new in your life and you not recognize it. You not appreciate it. You not get it. How does that happen? How does God do something wonderful in our lives, new, and we don't see it? Well, the verse right here indicates it by dwelling on the past. We here now at the Brick Church this year are going to be facing some changes. Things are not going to be the same. By the end of the year, this place may look very different than what it does now at the beginning of the year. But that doesn't have to be a bad thing. That can be a great thing. But it means there's going to be changes. And change is hard. Change is not something we like to do. Change is something that we tend to resist. And there's reasons for that. One of them is we're not always certain what should change. Where should the change be? What kind of change is good? What kind of change is bad? Anyone who's been to an AA meeting knows the Serenity Prayer, which was written by Reinhold Niebuhr, a Christian theologian. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Courage to change the things I can. And wisdom to know the difference. So change is not to be avoided. But if we change what should remain, you lose your identity. If you change things just to change, people can't count on you. They don't know where you're coming from. If you're changing what should remain, nobody knows how to follow you. They can't put their trust in you. They can't have any stability walking with you. But if you hold on to what should be changed, you become irrelevant. And it's a challenge for the church. What should change? What should remain? Just because we did it that way in 1982 doesn't mean we should be doing it now. Peter wrestled with vision. He got sidetracked. He began to lose his vision. But he did make it back. He did establish himself. In the book of Acts, he's brought before the Sanhedrin Council. So they called the apostles back and commanded them never again to speak or teach in the name of Jesus. But Peter and John replied, "Do you think God wants us to obey you rather than him? We cannot stop telling about everything we have seen and heard." Peter finally got it right. Peter came to know that his success, his purpose in life, is going to be with keeping a vision of Jesus Christ. It's going to be hard. It's going to be confusing. There'll be moments of despair and moments of emptiness when changes come in our lives, and we'll be tempted to stray from vision. For the vision of God for you, for the vision of God for this church. But that doesn't mean it has to be the end of the story. God has kept his favor on this church for centuries. And I believe he's not finished with us yet. How do you do that? I will lift my eyes to the hills from whence comes my help. Anytime doubt starts creeping in and you're not sure which way you're supposed to be going, you don't have to walk in the darkness, but looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. I don't know what is going to come this year. I don't know what's going to happen in the weeks and the months that are going to approach us. I don't know how we're going to accept the changes and adjustments that's going to be forced upon us, that we're going to find ourselves compelled to. But I do know that he who holds tomorrow is going to be walking right beside us. And if we put our trust in Jesus, if we hold on to his unchanging hand, he'll take us through no matter what comes. I don't have to get discouraged. I don't have to panic. Because I've come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord, trusted in his every word, and he's never failed me yet. When I felt like giving up, he held me up. When I felt like turning around, he held me up. I can keep my eyes on Jesus. He'll lead us on. I'm pressing forward. I'm reaching for the mark. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Keep your eyes on Jesus.
We've come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord, trusting in his holy word. He's never failed us yet. Oh, 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 can't turn around. We've come this far by faith. We've come this far.